Hello, friends, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Fort Worth Roots.
The first one we did was basically like a flatbed trailer at the end of it. And it was, I can't remember the band now, but it literally was like 12 of our staff and 10 homeless people.
Yeah.
And that's the first one. And I'm like, what in the hell are we doing?
What did we do?
and the idea in theory was really cool, but I was like, are we going to be able to do this again? And they supported us. So New York Southside was mainly the partner behind it, wanting to see this thing, get leg.
You can find the Fort Worth Roots podcast on all of your favorite streaming services like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and many more. And on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's Fort Worth Roots, same logo, easy to find. Today's episode is an exciting one. We sit down with the director of the Fort Worth Weekly. It's a local newspaper here in Fort Worth, Texas. Stay tuned to the very end of the episode. We'll talk about more of our sponsors that help us keep the lights on here at the Fort Worth Roots podcast and upcoming events. This episode, of course, is sponsored by Roofing Solutions by Darren Houck. You can get them at roofingsolutionsHouck.com or at 817-882-6520. And as always, you can find them on the Fort Worth Roots website on the Trusted Sponsors tab. So you don't have to write any of this stuff down. You can just go to fortworthroots.com, find the Trusted Sponsors tab, and scroll down until you find the service or product that you need. Guys and gals, thank y'all for being here. You can find a copy of the Fort Worth Weekly at reputable businesses all over the city of Fort Worth. That's enough talking out of me. Give it up for our new friend, Michael Newquist, director of the Fort Worth Weekly. And let's start the show.
That's good.
Well, Michael, thanks for coming out, man.
Thanks
Happy
for
New
having
Year.
Me. Happy New Year to you too, dude.
Associate publisher.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've got probably every title under the sun over the last 20 years at the Weekly. So I moved out here, it was about 20 years ago, with my family from L.A. So in L.A. I was running, it was the L.A. Weekly. It was a group that we were a part of, which basically was the LA Weekly, New Times, and we had Village Voice Media. So we had 15 publications across the country. And it was wild because I was like running around crazy, had little kids. LA is not the best place to raise kids. Just
doesn't seem like.
No, not at all. So my brother and I, my brother's the owner of the Weekly. And so,
what is your brother's name?
Lee.
Okay.
And so he'd been with Village Voice for a long time. And so he was like, yeah, I'm going to buy Fort Worth. And I'm like, where the hell is Fort Worth? Like, I didn't know, obviously, the Fort Worth Dallas connection. We had the Observer and Fort Worth Weekly. Yeah. And, it was wild because I think when they bought it, they thought that there was some synergy between the two markets. And
between Dallas and Fort Worth?
Yeah.
Direct opposite,
So I got out here, I'm like, whoa, this is totally different. I think it was like Railhead is always like, they have their signs like everything, go back to Dallas, things like that. And I remember even Fort Worth, the Weekly did a best of award and it said best place to see Dallas is in your rearview mirror. And I'm like, okay, so there's some weird dynamic that we never knew out of the market.
And by now you know the history of it. I mean, it goes all the way back to Amon Carter.
And it's weird because I like Dallas. It's like I go there every once in a while, but Fort Worth's my home. Yeah. And it's been great. Raising kids here, family, community. It's still the best place I've ever lived.
Yeah. Have you found over the last, say, 5-8 years, there's like less and less reason to go to Dallas?
Yeah, for sure.
We've grown up. I mean, especially since Dickies.
Yeah, and Dickies is a big move. I mean, I was waiting for that for years. And Live Nation, who obviously books, all the shows there, they never ever took much notice of Fort Worth. Yeah, they did a couple of one-off shows here, and even did shows like the Ridgely and things like that. And I was like, okay, so why don't you understand this is a big market? And so I'd always wanted to see shows like happen one in Dallas and then the next night in Fort Worth because it's huge. Yeah. And I think the only ones that have done that, Post Malone might have done that or somebody else, but there are not many reasons to go to Dallas. I mean, think about it here. Great food, museum district is better than any place I've seen in the country. And that's a big sucking sound. And now we'll see it grow with some of the money that's coming in here. Yeah. Like Stockyards is out of control. That hotel drover, and you probably remember this, man, when those people heard about that, Majestic, who runs it, they're LA guys, they're big real estate guys.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, you're going to screw it up. You're going to California up my Texas.
That's what everybody was worried about. Yeah.
And now you ask those same people, like, thank God those guys came in here. It needed to be cleaned up for so long.
Yeah.
And all those places are doing better because of that.
And what's the little strip that runs off of the main drag towards the Drover?
Exchange.
Okay.
So you have East Exchange and West Exchange.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, when my daughter comes back in town, she's 21, so she goes out and whatnot. They'll go over in somewhere in the Mule Alley district or whatever it is, but then they'll end up, they're like, yeah, we always go to the basement bar. I'm like, that place has been around forever, but they all hang out there and it's cool. So that guy, he's doing well because of that boom.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of odd to see. I'm never afraid of the people coming here because I'm one of the people that came here.
Right.
And I think that new sets of eyes is good, but they also, I think Majestic has, they realize the history of Fort Worth. They realize they can't mess it up too much or they will get people revolting.
Yeah.
and that was about to happen with what they were up to, man. And I was like, they did it right. And it's still a little overpriced and all the other things. Not everybody's going to go out.
Right?
It's a little crazy. But I think it's helping, some people get jobs. It's helping the economy. And hopefully that has ripple effects throughout the entire city.
Well, that entire strip leading up to the Drover from the Coliseum, or is that what they call that? Where they have the rodeo?
Yeah, the Cowtown Coliseum area.
Is just badass. And they've done a good job of maintaining that historic Stockyards look without sacrificing comfort.
Well, and that was the weird thing is like when Sundance Square, from my understanding, when they kind of took all that business away from them, here we are 20 some odd years later and it's flipped. And so now Sundance Square is kind of a ghost town, as we all know.
Yeah.
And that might be a little bit self-induced, but will that come back in another 10 years? Yeah. It's just the cyclical thing that goes on in this market that I've witnessed. Different pockets pop up and some go down, but the big sense of community and where people are spending their money is something that I always watch like a hawk.
Yeah.
Because my kids have maybe been to a Chili's one time in their life.
Good.
That's the deal. And they understand.
Everything else was closed.
Well, and they understand, and they're kids, man. Yeah. They understand where a dollar should go. And that's what we tell our clients. That's what we tell our friends. And some people just are, stuck in their ways. I always think about this. You drive down, 30 and you look over the edge off the freeway and you see Papados. Papados has hundreds of cars in it every time you drive by. Yeah. And I'm like, man, that place is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But why do people always just go there?
I don't know either. It's kind of a tourist destination, I think.
It's tourist, but it's also locals. I mean, I know people who are like, oh, we go there every Christmas Eve. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you go to Wishbone and Flint, or why don't you go to Fred's? Yeah. Because those local guys, that means so much more to them. Yeah. And to you, ideally, after you give them money. Yeah. So
and you're keeping the dollar inside the community too.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think if you asked people, if you stood outside of a Home Depot or a mall or something, the few people that still go to malls, and you were to poll everybody that walked by, would you rather spend your dollar at a local business or a big chain where the money leaves the community? I bet 100% of them, if not close to it, would say, oh yeah, small business all the way. But whenever the rubber hits the road and it's time to actually make that decision, people are definitely keeping these places open. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and I think obviously the big thing that really hit everybody was with COVID, right? And I swear, I thought after COVID, people would have come out of that with a better sense of how to support local.
People didn't learn anything.
And I have to agree with you. Either they became complacent and they didn't want to, I feel like they did support a lot. We at the Weekly were doing our best every single week. This girl, Jennifer, in our office, she was compiling these lists of every curbside opportunity or whoever was doing something, whoever was even open. And we'd list that out every single week. Nice. And I thought it was really cool. And I started to use that as a guide, as I hope a lot of other people did. But you saw like people really on social media, hey, go support this guy. chefs supporting other chefs.
I did see a lot of that.
Yeah, and that was really cool. And so everybody, I mean, even the musicians, right? We were given money on, Zoom deals where different artists were playing, and you were donating online because you couldn't get out of your house. And I'm like, I hope this sticks, right? Because this isn't such a good opportunity to come out of this and once again know where your dollar goes.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, is that when that didn't happen, I'm like, what did you become good at then?
Yeah. What changed?
Yeah. And I don't know. I think that if everybody kind of goes into a new year, maybe that's a resolution for everybody, I don't know, is to really support local, but understand where money should be spent.
Yeah.
It'll help these guys.
Our listeners are probably getting tired of hearing me talk about this, but it is so important. And every time a dollar leaves our community, it's money that wasn't spent supporting our neighbors.
Yeah.
And you and I see it. We're out, we're doing stuff, we're talking to local businesses, we're going to these events, and we see them struggling. And so it's just always in our mind.
Yeah.
And you and I both lived through 9/11. And after 9/11, there was like this huge change culturally. It seemed like everybody was a little bit more neighborly, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, there was more support for the police. There was more support for our first responders, things like that. And over the years, of course, lots of things have happened. But you're expecting a change with the 2020 COVID thing, because last time we had something that was anywhere equivalent to a social impact that big, we saw a massive change. And so with COVID, I was also looking forward to seeing some positive social changes.
Yeah.
I thought also that there would be some changes, and it seems like the bitching and complaining and fighting just got worse.
Well, and here's the other thing, and maybe you and I have talked about this in passing, is like there are a lot of things that you can blame for. We can blame a lot of people for not getting out of their house and supporting.
Yeah.
We can blame a really hot summer. And I don't know if you remember a summer worse than what we just had, but it was brutal.
I've got stories, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've talked about it and whatnot, but it's, but a lot of people, and maybe most recently, and I know you covered it really, really well, the music scene. It's like, what's going on are people not going out? Well, I think people are going out, but everybody needs to, I think back in the day, what was it? It was the person at the water cooler who would have a good idea, and you'd follow them to a cool bar or a pub or a restaurant. Yeah. And that was a talking point. Maybe those people aren't gathering as much, and maybe those people aren't looking for those influentials that can say, hey, this is where you should go. It's really cool. And then you meet new people and you become friends. And
where's the thing tonight?
Yeah. And I think we've tried to do that the weekly always. And so, and as you have done on your podcast, it's like we can scream this, and yeah, maybe people are getting tired of us screaming it.
Lungs, yeah.
But I think you said it really well in your other, in the music awards one. You're really calling out the people who are already going out just to drag 5 more friends with them.
Bring your neighbor. Kidnap somebody.
And that's maybe where it's going to have to start.
I think so. And I don't get full credit for that idea. That was me and Sean Russell sitting around kind of brainstorming, like, what could we actually do? What message because the message that we're sending out is not working. Right. Hey, go see a local show. If they're not going, they're not going.
Yeah.
They don't trust me enough to take that advice. So what you need is, Michael, he's got this neighbor, y'all exchange golf tips or something, and maybe you find a way to segue. Hey, you know what? Why don't you come with us this Saturday? We're going to be at Magnolia Motor Lounge.
Well, and sometimes that becomes, because I do have a lot of those friends. I'm not a golfer, but
Shot in the dark.
I have some of those friends who would sit back and say, you know what, where are we going to go to eat tonight? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, we'll just ask Michael. I'm like, you just want me to keep telling you? You guys go out and figure it out yourself too, right? Yeah. So it is a burden sometimes to continue to keep driving it, but I do see at the end results. Yeah. And you want, and you bring up Sean Russell, he and I are good friends as well, and we've done a lot of fun stuff together, and he was a big part of Music Awards, as you spotted. But we're all kind of the same ilk. Yeah. How do we get those other people outside of it? And I think, man, that's a good idea, and it's a good way to start. I'm on board, I guess, if you guys pull off something more than what we've got going on now.
Well, I will tell you, and I want to probably Ben Sean's ear about this, because he's another really big heavy hitter for the community. Like, he's always trying to do something to get musicians involved and get the community engaged and bring people to these small businesses. So he's somebody else that I'd like to talk to about this. But we have a music series that we're going to launch in March, and we're going to have one band on one stage at a different location, March, April, May, June, July, August, and then in September they're all going to play on one stage. Right. As of right now, I feel comfortable giving this detail out. That location in September again will be at Pouring Glory, and we're going to keep this going year after year after year. And it's going to start with one band on one stage every month, and then eventually I think I'd like to crank that up to 3 or 4 bands on a stage every month. Do something like that. But this will give people another excuse to go out and support these smaller local businesses. Yeah. And it'll give our musicians another stage to perform on. So, and that's my idea. But everybody else needs to come up with their own idea. If they want to get out there and support, if they have the means or the connections, they got to come up with their own idea. And you guys have done a phenomenal job with not just the music awards, but Friday on the Green. And that's you in near Southside?
Yeah, so basically, and this goes, Megan and Mike, who run the Near Southside now, they've done an excellent job, and they're the people before them who I had been friends with, Don Scott and then Paul Payne. I had presented them with an idea of Friday on the Green. I said, hey, we could do this monthly.
About what year is this?
It was probably 13 years ago, because we just ended our 12th season and then take COVID out of it. So let's say 13 years ago.
We were worried we lost that, by the way.
Yeah, it sucked.
Freaking out.
It sucked, but once they started shutting down South by Southwest and everything else, we're like, okay, everybody needs to go home. But it was wild. But back then when we started it, and I was sitting here kind of conceiving it, the first one we did was basically like a flatbed trailer at the end of it. And it was, I can't remember the band now, but it literally was like 12 of our staff and 10 homeless people.
Yeah.
And that's the first one. And I'm like, what in the hell are we doing?
What did we do?
and the idea in theory was really cool, but I was like, are we going to be able to do this again? And they supported us. So Near Southside was mainly the partner behind it, wanting to see this thing, get legs. And I think we started with 7 at the beginning.
Were you all in that same space?
Yeah, same spot.
Nice.
And it wasn't built up around it like it is now.
It's such a weird spot. Whenever my first Friday on the Green, and I found the location, I'm looking at it from like maps, and I'm like, that cannot be right. Yeah. And then when I got there, I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. But just finding out where it was going to be at, and I'm like, what? Where? I don't understand.
I became friends with somebody who was in like those condos on the end of it. And this is probably 3 years ago. And he's like, hey, come with me. So he takes me through his house, and we walk up the spiral, staircase up to the top. And he's like, why don't you look over the edge and see what you created? And it was moving. I mean, there's 2,000 people there, and vendors all local.
Was that this? You said 3 years ago.
3 years ago, but it's basically that. I've told people we could put a monkey with an accordion up there, and people will show up. I don't know why it's become so popular.
It's such a badass little space.
But it's a great space, but it's never lost what that first one was, right? Which was all local. I mean, there's never been a national artist other than when Leon played, but he wasn't national at that time.
Right.
Any of those artists are all local people, and it takes a lot to sit there for 3 hours with your kids going crazy and throwing balls around and eating all the food and whatnot. But they stay, and they hopefully are getting educated too. I hope they enjoyed the show. But when we started it and the way that it's just even finished this last season, I wish there were more of them. Yeah. I really do. And I know it's hard, sponsorship money. I know it's hard organizing it, which a lot of that falls on your Southside to do. Yeah. But we never missed a beat by saying, this is all about the community. And I did have this one fear at the beginning of it. I was like, the minute it starts taking business away from the business around here is when we might want to pause or move it.
How could it do that?
Well, there was a guy who owns a couple of establishments over there, and he said, Michael, if one of these people in this neighborhood say that this isn't the busiest night of their month, they're lying to you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that could have changed because it has changed. Magnolia has changed. There's a lot of people in there that their needs are different than maybe they once were. And so now we're like spreading it out a little bit. And so there are going to be people that are saying, hey, you know what, all the people are going that way on Magnolia, and what about me over here? And I get it.
It's for 3 or 4 hours out of a month.
I get it, but then again, not every business person is the same.
Yeah.
And everybody's, and we know it on a business side and advertising and marketing and all that. It's like, okay, what did you expect to receive out of this promotion? Or what did you expect to, I mean, are the dollars not lining up? Let's talk about it. But for an event like that to bring everybody to the community and be like, hey, I didn't know that place even existed.
Right.
As they're driving into it or walking by it, that was kind of the hope. It's all free.
Yeah.
There's no cost to any of these people. And there's been a lot of really, really good players over the years that have really embraced this and helped keep it going. But like I said before, I would love to see more of them. And will Friday in the Green be here forever? I don't know.
It better be.
But if it's not, I know other people would really like to see a snapshot of that type of community in Ray Street or Sundance Square or wherever else it could be. They want that because that's where you meet your friends now.
So I think we've piqued people's interest now. When is Friday on the Green going to fire up this year?
Typically, we go in March and April. We kind of outline everything.
And then your last one is in
So we do 3, and then we take a break because it's so hot, as we talked about, and then we have 2 towards the fall. So October, November, or September, October, depending on what's going on. And so, everybody that I know in the music community are like, hey, can I play it? That's my one opportunity.
Yeah.
And I remember with Leon in particular, Leon played it. And Jeff Daisy is a really good friend of mine. He horn player for Nathaniel Rateliff now.
Okay. Yeah.
Fort Worth guy. He was on the cover because of his relationship with Tanya Jefferson. And they talk about him as Uncle Jeff. Like he's a really good guy, but he's a horn player and he's national and with Nathaniel, but he was one of the first people. He and I were having a drink at Boiled Owl. And he's like, man, I need to get this guy on Friday in the Green Stage. I'm like, you keep bringing this guy up, man. What's up with this? And he's like, I will tell you, Michael, he's really, really good, and he's got the chops, and we'll be the supporting band, so let him have a shot. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Fine. You've been on me to do it. So he gets up and plays, and the rest is history to a certain extent. But, when these artists when they get up there and they play in front of 1,000 to 2,000 people, kind of like Music Awards, to be quite honest. We had a couple of artists who were really young at this thing, and they haven't played in front of 500 plus people ever.
Like Max,
and
just absolutely killed it.
Dude, that kid
is amazing. He shreds, man.
He is, and I don't know him that well, but we exchanged texts and did everything, and Sean introduced me to him. I'm like, wow, this is kind of a new surge. So I guess back to what it used to be 10, 12 years ago with Leon and other artists who did really well for themselves and continued to, there's another pocket. And maybe Max is that kid. Maybe. I don't know. But
Max
I can only
people
hope.
Like him in that age group. I got the chance to talk to Max's dad, Robert, I believe. I hope I got that right. And we were talking about that exact thing. There needs to be fresh blood. So people like Max, people like Avery Burke, these just rock stars that get up there and get everybody excited, and younger generation that can kind of usher in the new era of people that like to go out and see these live shows. That's what you got to have. And we don't have enough of it.
And pushing them out there in front of those people only gives them more confidence to do it and take off.
Well, and you might have some other musicians out there Friday on the Green out in the field watching somebody like Max or Avery go up on stage and go, that could be me. I could do that.
Yeah. And I think that is, we could talk only about music, but in the music space, the art space, the culinary space, it's all kind of the same, right? And I applaud people that just work hard. I mean, as I was driving over here, I'm looking and everybody's at Salsa Limon. I bet all those people would rather be home on New Year's Day.
The staff, yeah.
Yeah, the staff, of course. But they're busting their ass and cooking and doing whatever they can to keep the doors open.
Is that a local outfit?
Yeah. Okay. Milo started it as a food truck way back when.
Damn good food.
Yeah. And so those stories can keep going, but I think that it's all of our jobs, whether it's media, podcasts, anybody, to still shine a light on them, but throw a few more people in the car, and that's how it's going to make it better.
Yeah. Don't get stagnant.
No, do not get stagnant. That's not going to work for anybody.
Well, I appreciate it, and Friday on the Green's incredible. I think eventually unless you guys get like some bleachers or something, you're gonna have to pick a new spot in a couple years, because but now I don't mind it getting packed, because even though there were so many people this year at the couple that I caught, it still wasn't uncomfortable. It was very well managed. I got there kind of late and was still able to find parking. Plenty of bathrooms to use that were clean, and so it wasn't like it was overly crowded. But I think eventually the popularity, you guys have y'all thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's other things we could be doing. And, you would talk to Eddie Brown, one of our writers, a few weeks back. And, we're leaner than we were before COVID. We're all wearing different hats. We're all, putting every
multiple hats.
And we're putting every oar in the water to keep things going and not skip them a beat. But, when we were doing big taco festivals and chili cook-offs and all these other things, it's like, whoa, we can't be everywhere for everybody.
Right.
And so we really want to take more time making sure that these things have the movement that they did from their inception.
Yeah.
And that, even though they've gotten some very crowded, is there something else that we could pivot and do? I mean, I love your idea with Sean. I mean, that is, if that idea can have legs, it's kind of a mini, Music Awards meets Friday in the Green meets whatever. If that can help young artists grow and ring registers up and down Main Street, which Scott is a great example. That guy at Pouring Glory, you got to be kidding me. One of the most genuine dudes, but he works his ass off.
He does, and for 8 years, he has just murdered himself trying to keep that place alive.
And you know what? I don't want to get involved with his financials. I remember there was a group of us in the music community that all got together and talked about, hey, should everybody be charging covers? And should everybody be, how do we get money from the cover, the door charge to the bands so that we can grow and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, man, I don't want you guys coming to the Weekly's office and saying, this is how you should run your business. Right. These guys all need to figure it out themselves, and it can't all be the same.
Yeah.
But when, you get an idea and some creatives around the idea, that's where it starts. And it could be 2 of you, it could be 10 of you. But I think anything right now is going to help.
The most novel idea I've heard, and actually right before you got here, Six Springs Tavern is throwing some event. I think this is up in like Richardson or something.
Okay. I don't even know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
But what they did is they gave the musicians 20 tickets apiece, and they're like, you guys get these tickets out to the public, charge what you want. And so that money is not only going directly to the musicians, but now they have a physical ticket in their hand that has value, and they can sell it for $5, $10, 15, 20, whatever.
Yeah.
And then some of these musicians, Richard Keller with Itchy Richie and the Burning Sensations is selling his tickets at, you tell me what you want to pay for this ticket. And that's great. But I'm sure every single artist that got 20 tickets to sell is going to do it their own way based on their audience.
Yeah.
To your point, don't tell me how to run my business. For the musicians, let me gauge my own audience. I know my people. I know the people that follow me. And I know it's going to work best for drawing 20 more people to this event. Yeah. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Well, and all of those, I guess sometimes we can't influence what their passion is, and we can't expect them to be, CEOs of a company. They've got to understand what they're good at, and they need support, period.
Right.
And if that's an idea that is floated by them by some venue or whatever, that's great. But where there's one, there's 10. And I think that you can get people to rally around you.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, it's interesting.
So we just got done interviewing the associate publisher for the Fort Worth Weekly. Now we need to talk to Michael. So you mentioned L.A. Is that where you grew up?
No, you know what? I was born in Boston, and then I kind of grew up in Phoenix.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. We moved there when my dad was pretty young. I'm the youngest of 8 kids.
Okay.
So Irish Catholic family, and my brother Lee, who I work with, he is like the second oldest. But you know what? I grew up with a lot of artistic music people.
A lot of culture.
Yeah, and it was great. It was a long hallway, and you could bounce to door and listen to different music and find your own path.
Did you ever get involved playing or?
Yeah, I played for a long time.
Did you?
Yeah.
What was your instrument?
I play guitar, bass, and sang and the whole deal. But I did that, and one of my brothers actually became more of a touring artist, and he got signed and did the whole thing. But all of them had that little gene, and I guess our parents allowed us to play.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of parents get really freaked out about that, but I encourage my kids. Not all of them are into music, but they at least they challenge themselves. And they have buddies that, oh yeah, I'd love to pick up the guitar, and I'm like, grab mine. I don't care. Go ahead, try it out. And the cool thing about Fort Worth too is such a tight knit community here. Is that I was in Phoenix, and I was in LA, I was in Denver, and finally made my way back here. But it was weird because in LA I didn't even know who my neighbors were.
Yeah. Right.
So now everybody knows each other. This is the 13th largest city in America that doesn't even realize it is.
Right.
And I'm like, but everybody knows each other, which is really kick-ass. So that's
especially in our little community of.
Oh, for sure. Everybody knows each other. And I think that's also some of the reasons why some of the Dallas people who've wanted to open their second location over here maybe have not done it the correct way.
They move in and die. And
they move in and they're like, nah, you're not going to make it here.
Yeah.
But that sense of community that's still here. But I guess where I'm going is that it could start with family. It could start with your neighbor. And it could be just like, all right, let's try this thing. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that my parents taught me is that, hey, you're not going to live here forever. You better figure it out on your own. Go make money, respect everybody, and go ahead and have a hobby just so you're not just sitting down and doing nothing.
Yeah.
Which brings me to another point is that I'm not going to let my kids do that. They have to all work at a restaurant at some point. They've all done that. That's just part of the deal.
I feel, and I've said this for years, if you're going to eat out, if you're going to go to a restaurant, you should have to have a card that says you did 6 months, a year in food service, so that you know how to treat the staff.
My God, it's not that hard. But they learn so much. And my daughter works up in Norman at a bar restaurant during school. My son busts tables at an Italian joint on the south side. I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, we met some good people. I'm like, that's kind of where it started.
That is so awesome.
But you kind of have to instill that. Not everybody has kids. Not everybody has to do all this stuff. But what I'm saying is that it is something maybe that my parents taught me.
Yeah. Is
like, you got to figure this out.
So you literally had that conversation with your kids, like you are going to work in food service.
Everybody knows it. Everybody.
Is so funny.
Well,
it's awesome.
But the funny thing is they can make some good money.
Yeah.
If they find the right spot, but they may not do it forever. I really don't know. They don't know what they're going to do forever. But
you want them to have that exposure.
You have,
so cool.
But you also get that bit of respect in, I'm not going to give it to you. It's just not how it was given to me. So back to your question. Yeah. So I grew up in Phoenix. I went to school in Denver. I worked at a weekly newspaper there with a lot of good people and really smart people. I worked at a brewery on the side.
And so you jumped right into it.
Yeah. You know what? I started out as a designer and artist.
Okay.
And so I found out you couldn't really make a lot of money doing that.
Right.
And so I kind of got into the business side, but I was a runner. I mean, the woman I married, I was collecting her checks she was a salesperson. I was a runner, a long-haired kid. I'm like, all right, this is how I'm going to make it. But it kind of grew, and I just grew with the companies over time. And then this opportunity to move to Fort Worth came up from my brother, and I was like, this is weird, but let's try it.
Yeah.
And it was funny, when I first got here, I was looking for a house to live in or an area, and I pull up to this gas station. This is before, I guess just as cell phones were around. And there's a guy with his dog on a motorcycle. The guy doesn't have his shirt on, and he's got like a little Texas flag in the back, but the dog is like sitting in the front. I'm like, so this is Texas.
On the tank.
I'm like, so this is where I moved to? I'm like, it was literally that weird, and like tumbleweeds. I'm like, there was not much back then. And it was only 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember what West 7th looked like?
Yeah. Yeah. And what was really funny, and just to be clear, the dog was on the fuel tank.
Yes. Like riding shotgun.
So I want to say this was 2011. And you could go, because I used to do this to explore new areas that I hadn't been to before. It was fairly new.
Yeah.
But you could get on Google, you could drop the little man in the street, and you could go street view, and you could walk down the street by sliding your mouse forward.
Oh, yeah.
And I did that going down West 7th. just trying to kind of figure out something to do, or I don't know why I was exploring it. But anyway, I'm walking across West 7th on Street View, and I cross Foch Street, or Foch, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And before I got to Foch, it was just warehouses. This is 2011, and you can see the little watermark in the images, and it says 2011. And you crossed Foch, and it was, I think now it's 2015. And whenever you turned around, you could look back, and that was 2015. In between 2011 and 2015, all those warehouses, and they weren't big warehouses. They were small, old downtown, like garages and shops and things like that. But you could turn around and look back the direction down towards that messed up intersection.
Yeah.
And all the buildings were just brand new, revitalized, and beautiful, and shopping centers. And I mean, it happened overnight.
It happened overnight, and back then there was the whole Van Zandt policy. That whole area was owned by the Van Zandt family. And they weren't allowing liquor license in that area to expand. So you had a few. You had, obviously Fred's in their original location.
Pop Safari Bar.
Pop Safari.
Terra.
There was, and Black Dog moved over there. All those places were there, and then it just got out of control, and it got too much.
Really fast.
And now is what we've got, right?
Yeah.
Where, just being honest, my kids don't go out on 7th Street since the incidents happened. Will that change? I don't know. And that's not for me to say. But I think that era and time was run by a lot of good people. Yeah. And some of those people are still around.
Yeah.
Some of those people are getting way old and tired. And this is back to our music situation, back to some art situation. It's like, I don't want to get old and tired. I don't want to stop telling people to go out and support, or going out in general. Yeah. You don't have to go out and get banged up like you did when you were 20.
Right.
But you can go out and still see and understand what's going on in your community.
Yeah, enjoy yourself.
And it's hard on some businesses. I know it is. And I know it's tough with the real estate getting the crazy prices that they are.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
That it's tough to make the decision. But
that's a big portion of it. We don't have to harp on it. But, a gallon of milk, whatever, eggs. The Home Alone comparison. Did you see that this season?
Mm-mm.
They were saying, if you were going to go into a grocery store in 1999 when Kevin McAllister was ringing up these items, it came out to like $25. And today, 2024 now.
Yeah.
The comparison was 2023. If you did that again in 2023, that same $23 purchase that Kevin made would be $80-something. And it's like, well, a lot of that happened just in the last 3-4 years. You know?
It is true.
And so hyperinflation is an issue. It's hard for people to get out. They don't have as much expendable income, and that's another probably factor. Not as big as probably what people are thinking, but
true.
It's a factor.
It is, and it always will be.
So we had a condo, not a condo, but an apartment with multiple levels on it down there, just across from Rodeo Goat.
Okay.
Right before all the changes happened, we lost Magnolia Motor Lounge, which has reopened since then, off of that 377 traffic circle. Fred's, we lost Fred's down there off of 7th Street, and it's relocated off of Camp Bowie. But just a lot of changes in that area. And it happened right as I got an apartment down there. So I was a little pissed.
Yeah.
I moved down there to be around all that stuff.
I'm sure.
It just took off. And now, in my opinion, the only reason to ever go down to that district, that 7th Street district, on that side of the street is Kung Fu Saloon, because they've got these incredible hamburger egg rolls. That's it.
Got it. Got to go. Well, this is the same kind of story that I think is happening across the country.
Oh, yes.
So I was in Denver before, and I don't know if you know Denver very well. There was a Lodo area, and I worked at this brewery, and our weekly paper was right there. And then Coors Field came in, and it just started getting crazy.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing that happened there that happened with West 7th. Now, I just got back from Denver a week and a half ago, and Denver has had a very similar to Portland and San Francisco and the homeless population has definitely changed things.
Yep.
This is not a time to talk about all the politics or whatever, but that city has changed drastically, and it sucks. However, I go, 3 miles a different way or 5 miles that way, and there's new pockets, and that's what's going to happen here. Yeah. And I think those areas, you can kind of see the infrastructure building in and around Fort Worth. Ray Street has always been this situation where
sleeping giant.
Well, everybody's like, why isn't Race Street working? Why isn't Bluebonnet Circle working? I'm like, I don't know the answers.
It's just not the time yet.
But there will be a time.
A boom, yeah.
And you know, you don't want to be the guy that's doing it or gal who is the first one there. We've seen what happened to them.
Yeah.
And it's tough. But I see some of the stuff being built up and around there because it's probably affordable to build over there. Mm-hmm. That might just be a little pocket to all watch out for. Yeah. And that's me hoping. I think that's all of us hoping. But some of these other places, they just may not come back to the way they were before.
Yeah, I know you're right. It's happening all over the country, and things, we talked about it at the beginning of the episode. There's little pockets that pop up. It's like a breathing thing. It lives and breathes and changes, and sometimes it's West 7th. It's not downtown anymore, but it might be later. Yeah. It's not West 7th anymore, but it could be, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Right now, it seems to be Magnolia, Hospital District, all that over there is really, really hot. And Race Street is something that it just doesn't even make sense because it's so cool. There's so many great little spots right there. The Post seems to be the only thing that's really keeping it all together. Yeah. But there's a restaurant, maybe not right next to the Post, but a couple down, that's changed hands 5 times in 3 years. So it's happening across the country. And Fort Worth is still, as far as I know, cost of living versus income, probably the best place in the United States right now. It might only be the 13th largest city, but I bet you the quality of life in Fort Worth is top 3, top 5. It's got to be.
Well, we've got to figure out it's still the fastest growing city in America.
And there's the proof.
And that's it. I mean, call it what it is. Now, if people aren't happy about that, back to the Sundance Square situation, the Stockyard situation, it's going to grow, but it's also, you kind of want to know what's the cool thing to do. And we've tried our best, and every single week uncover, you had won a best of, which I forgot to congratulate you on that early on.
I've won 2 of those.
Oh, 2. Sorry about that. I should have brought you an award or a big...
do we have one of those around the office?
Yeah, I think it is back in the office. Obviously, that's not my job. I don't remember to deliver those things.
Well,
but
if you find the 2023 one,
I'll get that
22 as well.
But I remember us doing that best of, and still doing that best of, and it was always like to try and uncover the most unique places, right? Especially from our critics. And Eddie is really good at it, and Anthony and all of our writers. But it's like, okay, I didn't know that place had the best tamale, or that place has the best sushi or best happy hour, and so on and so forth. And it's not influenced by the business by any means, trust me. But I always want to be surprised by that, right? So I don't even know what the food review is next week.
Right.
I have no idea what that is. And not a lot of other media, which media can be influenced, as we all know, is by how many dollars are being spent. And so if it's legit and it's unique and it's local, that's what we do. And we try and continue to do that all the time. But it also is kind of a cool guide or a roadmap. Yeah. We have people that would go and check each award, and they would go and drive to all the spots. I'm like, who does that? That takes a lot.
It's excessive.
Yeah,
and expensive.
And expensive, but it is also, some people are rabid like that.
That's awesome.
They want to know that cool shit. Yeah. And if that's the case, then how do we continue to prime that pump a little bit?
I'm always excited to see new ones because, I mean, the Best 5 or whatever, whenever that comes out, most of those places I've been to, but every once in a while, every year, in fact, there's going to be something on there that I don't recognize. Where's that? Who? What? Where did that come from?
I think a lot of people are doing that now,
which is awesome.
More often because they want to hopefully support. But we don't need more places closing. We do need more places opening up.
Yeah,
and it's
more
hard.
Local places too.
Yeah,
less Papados, less Chili's, and more local.
Exactly, 100%.
So I've seen you out and about doing different stuff. Most recently, Magnolia Motor Lounge and Pouring Glory. I've caught you out there hanging out. And you do a really good job, whether you're running a Friday on the Green or the Fort Worth Weekly Annual Awards. You get out there and you make yourself known. You're not walking around going, I'm Michael from the Fort Worth Weekly. But you go out to support, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
So I guess my question is, what's your place? What's your hangout other than just making the rounds? Because you do a good job of making the rounds. But what's Michael's spot?
You know what? I've since I've been here 20 years, a lot of these people are just my friends.
Yeah.
Right. And if I have a beer with them or just talk with them, and this goes from Autumn at Boiled Owl and Tarantula Tiki to Stefan over at Wishbone and Flint's to Quincy at Fred's. I mean, I can name all these people that, we started as like business partners, or I was helping them promote something. But my car goes to them, and I don't really look at their menu. I ask them what should I have? What's cool?
Best way to do it.
But there, my car goes kind of. It's just on any given day, I'll be either in Arlington or Fort Worth, or just running around in mid cities and seeing people I hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the guy who's going to the club. I'm not that guy who joins that stuff. It's just not my bag.
Right.
Most of the people that I've worked with, they're like friends of ours, and we've helped each other, right? We, get them to do collabs with somebody else, or we tell our big brand sponsors, hey, this guy's got a good idea. We should support this. And I can help support it on the marketing front. Can you help them support it with your products or anything else? Because that's kind of where the good ideas started. And that's something that I hope they see, that friendship is not just a transaction.
Sure.
I've never seen it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has a little sales in them. Everybody has to in this day and age, whether you're an artist, a musician, anything. But I never have looked at that as this way. I look at it as like, hey, can I help you? Can I, and maybe I'm helping you by just coming and saying hi because nobody else wants to give you the time of day.
Yeah.
But it's always been, I've got enough spots. I could list 100 of them.
Right.
But I think it's my friends first.
Yeah.
I just want to go and hang out. And once again, that dollar meant a lot more to me that day to give to them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Typically, I would pin you down and be like, okay, now tell me which one. But
no.
That was a great response.
I can't.
Right. Before we go on, I just want to let you know that without dropping any names, you have a very people speak highly of you in the community.
That's nice. I appreciate
so,
that.
Just so our listeners know, he's not just blowing smoke. I know plenty of people that reference you by name and just have nothing but nice things to say about you.
Well, and I appreciate that. I'm kind of always the guy behind the curtain. I don't want the attention. But I love seeing people, meet up and enjoy it. And, once again, you get that as well. I'll pass it back to you. I mean, you're busting your ass out there just as much, and it's going to take a village.
Well, and you can't, it's hard to get on the recording once a week and tell people like, go to the show.
I'm
if
sure
your ass isn't there too.
Yeah. It's tough.
So I try to make a point to practice what I preach, So, but these, like you said, these are my friends. I'm not just going as a transaction. These are my buddies, and I know that whenever I walk in the door and my friends see me, the same way that whenever I'm throwing an event and somebody walks in, when I see them, my face lights up, and theirs does too, and that's a really great feeling. And you could compartmentalize all the different reasons that you go to these different things, but at the end of the day, it's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I like being with my people, and like we mentioned earlier, it's a tight-knit group, and these people that keep coming out to these shows, these events, and these small businesses, when we walk into a room, we know half of them.
Well, and I think
more.
I think people want that.
Yeah.
I think big business wants that. I watched a documentary. I watch documentaries like 3:00 every morning for some reason. It's weird when I can't sleep. But I watched when Doug Renfro, who owns Renfro Salsa, tipped me off to this documentary. And it's a documentary called The Donut King. You should watch it if you get a chance.
Sounds familiar. I think I've scrolled past it.
Anyway, it's a Cambodian refugee goes and opens up a couple of donut places. I won't give away too much.
How funny.
But long story short, he opens up a chain of them and brings more refugees in and sponsors those families. Really, this is like in the 70s, mid-70s.
This happened in California?
That's where he started those donut shops. I don't even like donuts. But what I'm saying is that this story it's so well done that he brings all these people together. They open it up, and Dunkin' Donuts tries to come from Midwest and back east into California, and they fail. because everybody comes back and says, no, we want to support these people. Yeah. This is before the internet, before social media. And these people are like, no, we don't want that big chain. We want to come and support these people because they're our friends. They know our kids. And that is pretty wild that was happening back then. It was all word of mouth. But after that documentary that morning, it was just 2 days ago, I went to the beignet place on Main Street. I didn't think of a donut place, but my kids asked for that. And I was talking to him, and I'm like, he's like, man, it's been rough. And I'm like, I need to be here more often. Just as you said, you can't preach so much without doing a little bit. Right. And you can't be at every show. No. And I can't buy every donut in town from every local vendor. Yeah. But if we can do a little bit, that would mean something. Sure. And take time to introduce yourself. Take time to ask a question, and maybe that person will become your friend, and that'll give you another reason to come back. Right. So it's a good one. Anyway,
I've got an oddly specific question. I haven't seen this documentary yet, but did these refugees? You said Cambodia?
Yeah.
Did they sell all their donuts in pink boxes?
Yes, that is it.
I know a family that migrated from Cambodia to California and then moved their family from California to Abilene. They are Cambodian, and that is their story. Exactly what you just said. And
that's pretty wild.
They sell all their donuts in pink boxes, and it's the best damn donut I've ever had.
Yeah, the pink box thing was like their whole vibe.
That like you said, word of mouth. If you showed up in Abilene, Texas to work, or maybe you're going to church on Sunday and you had a box of donuts with you, you're not going to keep those donuts in that box if you show up with a pink one. Like, they're going to disappear real fast. Because everybody knows that those are the best donuts in town. Yeah. Shout out to AM Donuts in Abilene, Texas. Dom family, my friends, my homies.
There you go. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah, I need to watch that now.
Now you do.
Had no idea. So cool. Well, I try to keep these right around an hour, but before we burn off out of here, you came here today at my request, and I appreciate that so much.
Thanks for the invite.
But usually whenever people come on the show, they've got something that they want to promote, something they want to talk about, maybe a point they want to hit. Did we cover it in this episode?
I think we covered it. Yeah. You know, it's timely that we're meeting on New Year's Day.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me think a lot about what I'm going to do for this new year. And some of it I've got kind of up my sleeve a little bit, or we do at the weekly. But some of it is, personal, like what do you do next? Right. And where's my car going to go after this? And so I think that a New Year's resolution for everybody is to, do whatever you got to do. I can't sit here and tell people that, but I think the way that you structure this thing, we covered all those bases, but it makes me think, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not going to help you move a pile of firewood from one end of your yard to the other, or any kind of massive physical labor, but I want you to know, and I sincerely mean this, if you guys ever need any help promoting an event, or maybe you need an extra set of hands, I know Johnny Govea's got the camera covered, and a couple of your other badass photographers, but if you ever need somebody to just an extra set of hands, I'm there. So, and I mean that. I'm not just saying it.
I think that there's more that we could do together, and I've learned more about you, and it sounds like you've learned more about us over the last year, but there's some good things that we could do, and I like some of the ideas that we touched on. So please keep me in mind on some of that stuff too.
And to our friends at the Fort Worth Weekly, this might not even be something that I should mention, but I feel like I need to, so I'm going to. I want to say maybe a year ago, after the Fort Worth Weekly did their annual award show, I was catching a little bit of negativity from different people in the community for one reason or another. Yeah. But as it sits here today, right now, I can tell you that I have heard nothing but compliments and love and support for you guys.
Thanks.
Whatever was in the water, whatever was causing that bad vibe, which I feel like was largely undeserved, it's turned. And after this last music award, which was, I've got 2 shows that I've seen in Fort Worth that are at my top 2. And this last music award, 2023, was one of my top 2 shows that I've seen in Fort Worth in my life. It was incredible.
Good. I appreciate that.
And I appreciate what you guys are doing so much. And I just don't know who would fill that vacuum if you guys were not doing what you're doing on basically a skeleton crew? I can't believe you guys get as much done as you do. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a labor of love, and it's something that I don't think anybody in that office wants to stop doing. We had our Christmas party the other day, and it was just like, what's next? Let's keep going. Keep going. We can't sit back and think how cool that Music Awards was. We got to keep it fun and energetic.
Well, and I told you this before we got on the recording. I just finished a compilation video from 2023, and when I got done with that thing, I went, how the hell am I going to top that? 2023 was such a badass year.
It's good. I'm glad. And you had mentioned that earlier. Congratulations. But you know what? 2024, it's here. Let's do it. It'll be good.
Let's kick its ass. Yeah.
Let's kick its ass. Thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it.
We'll end it. That's a good note. Let's end it there. Michael, can we get you back on the show sometime?
I'd love to come back. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thank y'all so much for listening this week. We're out of here. See you. A very sincere thank you to Michael for being on the Fort Worth Roots podcast. Looking forward to working with the Fort Worth Weekly staff in any way that we can. We had a bunch of good conversations before and after the recording. And, not just the Fort Worth Weekly, but anybody else that's out there trying to make a difference in our community. We want to help. We want to get involved. If you need an extra set of hands, we're here for it. Just send us an email, get a hold of us, carrier pigeon, phone number if you got it. Whatever. Our email is media@fortworthroots.com, and we're always looking for interesting guests, and we're always trying to get connected with our community. So let us know if we can ever help you out. Again, Michael, thank you very much for being on the show, and we hope to get to see you guys and get you on the show in the near future. Go find yourself a copy of the Fort Worth Weekly at reputable businesses all over the city of Fort Worth. Just look for them in the little bins next to the doorway usually. All right, let's get into these sponsors. WoodPostMetalworks.com. Offer code podcast817 at checkout. Gets you 10% off. They specialize in metal signs with or without LED backlighting, fence and gate repair or installation, light steel fabrication, industrial plasma cutting, and more. Houkwalker Originals. Go to houkwalker.com. They offer a huge variety of unique and personalized gifts. Also laser engraving to customize just about anything you can think of. Roofing Solutions by Darren Houck. These folks have been so good to us. The Houck family has taken care of the Fort Worth Roots podcast for a very long time. And that's just kind of what they do. Their family's been taking care of their neighbors. The most valuable investment, their roofs on top of their houses. And before that, Darren's father took care of the River Oaks community and greater Fort Worth area. He was a roofer too. But these are just stories. Go check it out yourself. You can find Roofing Solutions by Darren. Roofing Solutions. Houck.com is the website. Roofing Solutions by Darren Houck is the name of the company. Jesus. But go do your research. Go look online. You'll find out that they've got shining reviews and very high ratings. Some of the best ratings in the entire industry for the DFW area. So check it out. Do your own research. Don't just listen to some podcaster. But anyway, they're excellent. And they can take care of you and your family too. Roofing Solutions by Darren Houck. Their phone number is 817-882-6520. What else we got? I have to flip through my notes here. I don't have all this stuff memorized. It sounds like I do, though. McFly's Pub, 6104 LTJG Barnett Road. A 1980s Back to the Future themed bar with a very impressive outdoor area and fire pit. Hang out and bring some friends. They got pool, darts, cornhole, jumbo Jenga. They got live music all the time. Tommy Luke does a Tuesday night open mic that you should check out. Again, that's McFly's Pub. Body Machine Fitness, 2300 West 7th Street in Fort Worth. They offer a truly one-of-a-kind fitness experience. Your first class has already been paid for. Go to bodymachinefitness.com to schedule your first high-energy cardio strength group fitness class. And best-in-industry trainers, cutting-edge audio and lighting system. Show up early or stay after the class for the IR sauna and nutritious snacks in the lobby. Again, that's Body Machine Fitness. Pouring Glory, always something fun going on over there. They've got weekly specials, monthly specials, all sorts of stuff. The menu's changing up all the time. So if you went in there a week ago, you probably haven't seen the full menu. It's always good. It's always excellent. Say hi to Scott when you get there, the owner. Great guy. Excellent food. Good vibe, good atmosphere. They do dog park Sundays, and I think they're now doing dog park Saturdays. They close up all the gates, and you can bring your fur babies out and just let them run wild. Socialize with other fur babies. It's a good time. Great selection of beer on tap, wonderful food, you're missing out. Pouring Glory, 1001 Bryan Avenue, Fort Worth, Texas. What else? We got WAVVY Digital. WAVVY Digital can take care of your social media and internet footprint. If you have a business, or if you are a artist, somebody that needs to get their brand out there, maybe you've been struggling with this, maybe you haven't been struggling, but you need to clear up some time. This is the person that can help you out. Go to Instagram, type in WAVVY Digital, WAVVY Digital. Our friend Gianna can give you a hand with that. Cowtown Nutrition, located at 5430 River Oaks Blvd. They offer a healthy alternative to that compulsory fast food craving. You can also load up on your favorite Herbalife products and learn about their fitness groups that they hold on location at Cowtown Nutrition. Check them out on Instagram at Cowtown_nutrition. Crew wear, that shirt, that 817 shirt I'm always wearing. Go to the Fort Worth Roots website, fortworthroots.com. Click on Trusted Sponsors. Scroll down to Crew Wear. And once you click on that link, it will take you to the website, and you can find that 817 shirt. It's ready. It's there. All you got to do is go get it. All right. Is that all of them? Did we get all of our sponsors? Really? That's everybody. We are, of course, looking for more sponsors as we move into our 2024 year. We have a music series that we're about to launch. It's going to go up in March. It's going to go through September. We're going to have a different band on a different stage every month up until September. And then all those artists are going to play on one stage at Pouring Glory. So it's going to be a good time. And if you would like to advertise on one of the best shows in DFW, you can email us, media@fortworthroots.com. We'd love to put your name on the banner. We'd love to have your pamphlets, business cards, whatever, laid out on our sponsor tables at these events. And we'd love to tell people that you helped us support the local music community. So hit me up. Let me know you want to be part of the party. All right, one more time, Michael Newquist, thank you so much for being on the show, Fort Worth Weekly. We love what you do. And to our listeners out there, thank y'all so much. If you didn't hear me last week, Happy New Year. Let's have a badass 2024. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. All right, see you.